Ethan Walker, a 38-year-old long-haul truck driver, returned to his suburban home at 4726 Foster Drive in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The two-story brick house, which he and his wife Olivia had purchased back in 2002, stood still in the sweltering July heat. The neighborhood, known for its manicured lawns and middle-class stability, had recently been shaken by a string of break-ins, leaving residents uneasy. Olivia Walker, his wife of 12 years, greeted him with an unusually brief hug. At 35, Olivia had recently reinvented herself. Once a stay-at-home mother, she was now building a name as a beauty entrepreneur, selling cosmetics through social media and local connections. Their daughter, Lily, was away for summer break, staying with her grandmother. Over the past few months, Ethan had begun to notice subtle but troubling changes in Olivia's behavior. She became guarded with her phone, spent longer in front of the mirror, and seemed emotionally distant during their conversations. That evening, after a quiet dinner of takeout Chinese food, punctuated only by Olivia's half-hearted updates about neighborhood gossip and her growing sales, Ethan retreated to his home office. The office, once a spare bedroom, now held his laptop and home surveillance equipment. 3 months earlier, after hearing about break-ins on Foster Drive, Ethan had installed a Lorix HD security camera in the hallway near the front entrance. That evening, the camera's red LED blinked steadily in the fading light. Curious and slightly uneasy, Ethan connected his Dell laptop to the security system and began reviewing footage from the past 2 weeks, his time away on the road. The initial clips were mundane. Olivia leaving for product demonstrations, returning with groceries from Walmart, and picking up the mail. Her schedule appeared consistent. Mornings out, early afternoons back. But then, something changed. One clip showed Olivia opening the front door to a well-dressed man in his late 20s, wearing a navy blue suit and carrying a leather briefcase. Their embrace wasn't formal. It was intimate, familiar. Ethan leaned in. The man's face was partly visible. It was Marcus D. Lee, a local real estate agent Ethan recognized from last year's 4th of July neighborhood barbecue. The footage showed them walking together toward the living room. Marcus's hand rested gently on the small of Olivia's back as they moved out of frame, their body language suggesting comfort and familiarity. Ethan's hands began to tremble. He replayed the footage again and again. Further review revealed multiple visits. Marcus had been to the house several times during Ethan's absence, always on weekday afternoons, always staying for hours. Each time, he parked his black BMW 3 Series on the street rather than in the driveway, keeping his visits discreet. As Ethan dug deeper, the pattern became undeniable. Marcus had reconnected with Olivia under the guise of helping her grow her beauty business, offering to introduce her to real estate clients who might host product showcases. As a successful agent with Red Stick Realty, Marcus was well known for his charm and persuasive sales techniques. His company profile boasted $2.8 million in residential sales during the first half of 2008. His social media painted the picture of a rising star, frequent posts of luxury listings, high-end showings, and networking events. Ethan methodically saved all the video clips to an external hard drive, labeling each by date and timestamp. His trucking logs confirmed he had been in Memphis during every one of Marcus's visits, delivering agricultural equipment to distribution centers. And now, as the final video finished playing, Ethan sat motionless, his mind reeling, his heart sinking. The realization hit like a freight train. While he was out working to support their family, someone else had been walking through his front door. The realization that his wife had been entertaining another man in their home, while he worked 400 miles away, sent waves of nausea rolling through Ethan Walker's body. The security footage told a story no words could soften. It painted a clear, undeniable picture of betrayal, one that explained the emotional chasm growing between him and Olivia over the past few months. From the adjacent room, Ethan could hear her voice, low and secretive, as she whispered into the phone. The walls of their once peaceful home, once symbols of love and shared dreams, now echoed with deceit. Even her soft laughter, once his favorite sound, now rang hollow a cruel reminder of the woman he no longer recognized. A soft knock came at the office door. "I'm going to bed," Olivia called. Ethan responded with a muted grunt, unable to peel his eyes away from the screen. Frame by frame, he scanned the footage, searching for more signs of how deeply her betrayal ran. Outside the room, the hallway camera's red LED blinked steadily, quietly recording new secrets in the Walker household. That night, Ethan couldn't bring himself to lie beside her. Instead, he sought refuge in the one place that still felt his own, the sleeper cabin of his Peterbilt 379 semi, parked in their driveway. Once a second home during endless miles across the country, the truck now served as a sanctuary from the storm unraveling inside his house. The compact bed, the hum of the engine systems, the faint scent of diesel, they offered him a strange comfort amid his disintegrating marriage. Inside the truck, the blue glow of his Dell laptop cast harsh shadows as Ethan replayed the footage again and again. His logbook lay open beside him, each entry highlighting his absence. Memphis, Nashville, Atlanta, while Marcus made his visits. Every route now marked not just distance, but opportunity for betrayal. Over the next 3 days, Ethan watched Olivia with sharpened awareness. She clung to her routine, leaving each morning in her silver Toyota Camry, claiming she had business meetings or beauty product demos. The car would vanish from the driveway for hours. When questioned, her answers were vague. Networking events, new client appointments. Her phone was always nearby, constantly buzzing with messages she quickly deleted. During one of her outings, Ethan acted. He installed a second Lorix HD security camera in the living room, carefully disguising it among framed family photos and ornamental knickknacks on the bookshelf. He ensured it had a clear view of the beige microfiber couch and the bay window that faced Foster Drive. The placement had to be precise, hidden yet effective. He tucked the power cable behind the shelf, adjusted the lens, and ensured the device blended into the decor. Reviewing the older footage with fresh intensity, Ethan now paid close attention to Marcus's details, his crisp designer suits, polished Italian leather shoes, the unmistakable glint of a Rolex watch. Everything about Marcus spoke of confidence and ambition. Ethan remembered the last 4th of July barbecue. Back then, he'd brushed off Marcus's flirtatious charm with Olivia as harmless. Looking back now was anything but. The couch, where Marcus had sat, perhaps more, was a gift from Ethan to Olivia on their 9th anniversary. The thought of their betrayal unfolding on something he'd lovingly chosen for their shared life ignited a rage he could barely contain. His imagination tortured him, playing out scenes of intimacy he hadn't witnessed but could now picture far too clearly. The sacred space he had provided, through grueling hours on the road and relentless sacrifice, had been defiled. As thunder cracked outside, Ethan opened his trucking company's online scheduling system. His next assignment, a 4-day round trip to Houston, Texas, departing the next afternoon. The familiar numbers, city names, and route paths blurred on the screen. But Ethan's thoughts were sharp, piercing. His years behind the wheel had taught him everything about weight, speed, and impact. A fully loaded semi-truck could be a force of destruction unlike any other. And in the eerie calm of that humid July morning in 2008, Ethan Walker stood in the kitchen, informed his wife he was leaving on schedule, and quietly started preparing for a very different kind of journey. On the morning of his scheduled trip to Houston, Ethan Walker performed his usual pre-trip inspection. He checked every system on his Peterbilt 379, loaded his personal supplies, and methodically went through his routine, motions he'd done 1,000 times before. Inside the house, Olivia barely acknowledged him. Her eyes were glued to her phone, and her farewell was no more than a distracted bye. But instead of heading west on Interstate 10 toward Houston, Ethan veered off course. He guided his 18-wheeler to an abandoned industrial lot off Shaka Drive in East Baton Rouge. Hidden between rows of decrepit warehouses, the defunct property, once belonging to a now bankrupt manufacturing company, offered the perfect cover. There, in the shadows of rusted steel and silence, Ethan transformed his truck into a mobile surveillance station. Inside the sleeper cabin, he connected his laptop to the home security system using a 4G mobile hotspot. The feed streamed in real time from both cameras, the original hallway unit and the newly installed one in the living room. Together, they offered a comprehensive view of the home's main spaces. From this outpost, Ethan became a silent observer of his own life. For 2 days, he monitored Olivia's every move. Her routine remained predictable: beauty product demonstrations, short errands, phone calls made from behind the closed bedroom door. But everything changed the moment a black BMW 3 Series pulled up to the curb on Foster Drive. Ethan's heart pounded as he watched through the high-definition feed. Olivia opened the door with a smile that wasn't meant for him. She wore a sleek black cocktail dress, one Ethan had never seen before. Devin, ever polished in a navy suit, stepped inside, holding a bottle of wine and a leather briefcase. It was all too choreographed, too comfortable. The living room camera captured the betrayal in brutal clarity. The two sat on the beige anniversary couch, the same one Ethan had gifted Olivia 3 years earlier. They poured wine into the crystal glasses reserved for holidays and milestones. Their conversation flowed with ease, punctuated by laughter. With each passing minute, their bodies inched closer. When Devin leaned in to kiss her, Olivia didn't hesitate. She welcomed it. Ethan watched, frozen, as the worst unfolded on his laptop screen. The camera quality spared no detail. Every touch, every glance, every betrayal was documented in stark, unforgiving resolution. He clenched the steering wheel, his wedding band catching the cabin light, mocking him with its symbolism. The abandoned lot's emptiness mirrored the void swelling inside him. His breath came slow and heavy. He didn't need to hear a word. They had already said everything with their actions. With a deep breath, he turned the ignition. The diesel engine roared to life, vibrating through the cabin like a heartbeat. But this time, the rhythm wasn't for the road. It was for something else. Ethan merged into Baton Rouge's evening traffic, his phone still mounted to the dashboard, streaming live footage from his home. On screen, Olivia and Devin continued their evening, oblivious to what was coming. Ethan's mind fixated on the image, their laughter, their closeness, their betrayal, happening in the home he had built with sweat and sacrifice. As he turned on a Foster Drive, his grip tightened. The Peterbilt 379 groaned with the weight of its fully loaded trailer, momentum now fused with rage. He positioned the truck perfectly, its engine rumbling like thunder in the residential stillness. The headlights beamed directly onto the front of 4726 Foster Drive, illuminating the bay window. Through the glass, he could see them, exactly as shown on his phone, still seated on the couch. They hadn't noticed him yet. Then, as he revved the engine one final time, their heads turned. Confusion flashed first, then fear, then the unmistakable horror of recognition. Ethan didn't blink. With the mechanical precision of a man who had spent years mastering his craft, he calculated the angle, the distance, the timing. His foot hovered over the accelerator. The engine growled, eager for release. In that moment, the Peterbilt was no longer a truck. It was judgment on wheels. The Detroit diesel engine roared to full power, generating maximum torque as the massive Peterbilt 379 barreled down Foster Drive. Its headlights lit up the quiet suburban street like a runway. At exactly 9:47 p.m., the 80,000-pound vehicle, fully loaded and moving with unstoppable force, collided head-on with the front of 4726 Foster Drive. The point of impact was no accident. The semi slammed directly into the living room, where Olivia Walker and Marcus Lee had been sitting only seconds earlier. The truck's colossal chrome grille, designed to deflect highway debris, became a devastating battering ram. It shattered the bay window, splintered the wooden frame, and tore through the front wall of the house with violent precision. The beige microfiber couch, once a symbol of love and domestic bliss, was crushed beneath the truck's steel body. Surveillance cameras mounted inside the home recorded the terrifying final moments, until their lenses were destroyed in the chaos, the footage ending in a burst of static on Ethan's phone. The crash triggered a chain reaction throughout the structure. Support beams snapped like twigs. The second floor partially collapsed into the living room, burying everything in a storm of wood, glass, and dust. The truck continued another 15 feet into the house before it finally stopped, its engine still running amid the rubble. Emergency calls flooded into the Baton Rouge Police Department within seconds. Neighbors reported hearing the deafening boom of the collision, a sound that echoed down the previously peaceful subdivision. Car alarms wailed in response, their shrill sirens blending with the panicked screams of residents who rushed out of their homes in disbelief. From the wreckage, Ethan Walker climbed out of the cab. There was no panic in his stride, only eerie calm. His heavy work boots crunched across shattered glass and splintered drywall as he surveyed what was left of his home. The living room, once filled with warmth and laughter, had become a tomb of twisted metal and mangled furniture. Smoke and dust, stirred by ruptured electrical wires, filled the air and danced in the beams of the truck's unblinking headlights. Olivia Walker and Marcus Lee lay motionless beneath the debris. Her black cocktail dress, his navy suit, once symbols of seduction, were now ghostly pale under the dust of the collapsed ceiling. A wine bottle and shattered crystal glasses lay nearby, their contents mixing with darker fluids that pooled across the destroyed floor. Mark Davidson, Ethan's next-door neighbor at 4728 Foster Drive, was the first to arrive. A retired paramedic, he pushed through the debris and checked for vital signs. There were none. Soon, more neighbors gathered at a distance, most too shocked to speak. Some raised their phones and began recording the horrific aftermath. Across the street, Patricia Thompson was heard shouting into her phone, frantically relaying the scene to a 911 dispatcher. Ethan made his way to the curb and sat down quietly. He placed his hands on his knees, his posture betraying neither panic nor remorse. His trucking company ID badge still hung from his shirt pocket, the laminated card catching the red and white flashes of the approaching emergency vehicles. At 9:53 p.m., Officer James Martinez of the Baton Rouge Police Department arrived. He found Ethan seated exactly where he'd last been seen. Calm, collected. When asked for identification, Ethan said nothing. He simply reached into his wallet and handed over his commercial driver's license. According to Officer Martinez's report, Ethan's hands were steady, his face unreadable. Moments later, the Baton Rouge Fire Department arrived. Their flashing emergency lights painted the wreckage in strobing waves. Fire Chief Robert Wells immediately requested structural engineers to assess the home before any recovery could begin. The once sturdy house, which had stood for decades, was now a grotesque tableau of destruction, its walls torn open, its secrets laid bare. As officers placed Ethan in handcuffs and read him his Miranda rights, the neighborhood stood in stunned silence. Small groups huddled together, whispering, filming, and trying to make sense of what had just unfolded in front of them. What the neighbors had witnessed that night would haunt them for years. The sight of Ethan Walker, a respected long-haul truck driver, being quietly placed in the back of a police cruiser. It added another layer of disbelief to an already devastating evening. His semi-truck, now silent, remained lodged in the ruins of his home. Emergency personnel continued to swarm the scene, working to secure the area and begin a formal investigation into the deadly crash that shattered the quiet routine of Foster Drive. The trial of Ethan Walker commenced several months later at the 19th Judicial District Court in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The case drew national media attention, with reporters crowding outside the courthouse. District Attorney Michael Anderson led the prosecution, while the defense was headed by veteran criminal attorney Thomas Wright. Presiding over the high-profile proceedings was Judge Lily Matthews. The courtroom was packed each day with journalists, local residents, and the families of both victims. The prosecution centered its case on the security footage recovered from Ethan's own home. Digital forensics expert Dr. James Morrison testified to the sophistication of the surveillance system Ethan had installed, underlining how it revealed the premeditated nature of the attack. The footage showed Ethan monitoring the interior of his house in real time, with timestamps that match his mobile phone records and the GPS data from his semi-truck. Further damaging evidence came from Ethan's internet search history. Prosecutors revealed queries about Louisiana's homicide laws, criminal penalties, and the impact velocity of large commercial trucks. District Attorney Anderson argued that these searches, combined with Ethan's deliberate choice to abandon his assigned Houston route, painted a clear picture of premeditation. The truck's maintenance logs confirmed it was in excellent condition, ruling out the possibility of mechanical failure. The defense, however, approached the case from an emotional and psychological angle. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a psychiatrist, testified that Ethan had been experiencing acute psychological trauma stemming from his wife's infidelity. Defense attorney Wright painted Ethan as a hard-working, devoted husband who had spent years working 80-hour weeks to provide for his family, only to be betrayed in the most intimate way. Wright also emphasized Ethan's spotless 15-year driving record and numerous safety awards from his trucking company. To humanize Ethan further, the defense presented witness testimony about his character. Patricia Thompson, a neighbor of 8 years, described him as quiet, respectful, and often helpful, mentioning times he assisted elderly neighbors with yard work and home repairs. However, not all testimony favored Ethan. Mary Sullivan, Olivia's close friend, painted a different picture. She described Ethan as controlling, noting how he frequently checked Olivia's phone and constantly questioned her whereabouts. These behaviors, she argued, reflected a possessiveness that had escalated over time. Marcus Lee's personal life also came under scrutiny. Colleagues from Red Stick Realty testified that he had a history of becoming involved with married clients. 3 separate complaints have been filed against him with the real estate board. While the prosecution objected, the defense used this to support the narrative of Marcus as a seducer with a predatory pattern. Judge Matthews allowed limited testimony on this topic. The most emotionally charged moment of the trial came when Lily Walker, Ethan and Olivia's teenage daughter, gave her testimony via video link from her grandmother's home. She described her father as loving, but also increasingly paranoid in the months leading up to the murders. Her revelation that she had found hidden cameras installed throughout the house left several jury members visibly shaken. After 8 days of testimony and deliberation that lasted 6 hours, the jury returned its verdict: guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder. At sentencing, Judge Matthews addressed Ethan directly. She acknowledged the pain of betrayal he had experienced, but condemned his calculated and violent response, stating that it demonstrated chilling disregard for human life. On October 15, 2008, Ethan Walker was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He showed no visible reaction, maintaining the same cold, stoic demeanor he had held since the night of the murders. The verdict brought little comfort. Marcus Lee's parents soon filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Ethan, while Olivia's family struggled with both grief and the public exposure of the affair. The house at 4726 Foster Drive remained vacant for nearly a year, its charred frame a haunting reminder of what took place inside. Eventually, it was demolished. Ironically, it was the very security system Ethan had installed to protect his home that had exposed the affair and ultimately sealed his fate. The house at 4726 Foster Drive, long abandoned and hollow by tragedy, stood as a stark reminder of that fatal night in July. Its crumbling structure cast eerie shadows, drawing the curiosity of local teenagers who dared each other to get close. Urban legends soon surrounded the place. Tales of ghostly figures glimpsed through shattered windows and whispers of sorrow echoing from within. In the spring of 2009, demolition crews finally arrived. Dozens of residents gathered to witness the teardown. Some watched in solemn silence, while others recorded the event on their phones, capturing the final moments of a home that had once stood for love and family. Once leveled, the lot became an unofficial memorial. Occasionally, fresh flowers would appear along the chain-link fence, silent tributes to lives lost and innocence shattered. Now 16, Lily Walker lived with her maternal grandmother, Grace Mitchell, in a quiet subdivision across town. Her bedroom walls were painted a calming shade of pale blue. Inside, fragments of a life once filled with joy were carefully preserved. Photos from family vacations to Gulf shores, snapshots from her 10th birthday party, and a framed picture of her father steadying her bike as she learned to ride. These frozen moments of happiness felt like relics from another lifetime. On her 16th birthday, a letter arrived, postmarked from Angola State Penitentiary. Lily recognized the handwriting immediately. Neat, measured, unmistakably her father's. The same hand that used to correct her homework and sign report cards. She left the envelope untouched on her desk for 3 days, staring at it each night before finally finding the courage to open it. "My dearest Lily," it began, "not a day passes that I don't think about what I've taken from you. Your mother's smile, her laugh, the way she used to sing while making breakfast. These are things you should still have in your life. My actions didn't just take her away. They took me too, leaving you to navigate your teenage years alone. The weight of that truth haunts every moment I breathe." The letters kept coming, one each month, handwritten with the same careful precision. Each was filled with memories, regrets, and fatherly concern that now felt hauntingly misplaced. Ethan asked about her grades, her friends, her dreams for college. He recounted stories from her childhood, bike rides, bedtime songs, backyard games, as if clinging to the version of himself that existed before everything went wrong. Every letter ended the same way, with endless love and bottomless regret. "Dad." Lily kept them all in a shoebox beneath her bed. Some nights, when the house was still and sleep wouldn't come, she'd open it and reread the pages under the soft glow of her lamp. Her grandmother never spoke of the letters, but Lily occasionally noticed her casting a quiet, concerned glance in their direction. A school counselor once suggested writing back, insisting it might help her process the pain. But Lily never could. Every time she tried, the words failed her. One rainy November evening in 2012, Lily sat cross-legged on her bed, the latest letter trembling in her hands. Outside, thunder rolled across the Baton Rouge sky. Eerily reminiscent of the night, everything changed. "I saw a family of cardinals outside my cell window yesterday," Ethan had written. "The father was teaching his young ones to fly. I remembered how you used to love watching birds from our kitchen window, naming each one that visited our feeder. I wonder if you still notice the cardinals, or if that's another innocent joy I've ruined for you." He continued, "The hardest part of my punishment isn't the concrete or the cold. It's knowing I've changed the way you see the world, how you understand love, trust, and family." Tears slipped down Lily's cheeks, blotting the ink on the page. She reached out, gently brushing her fingers over the smudged words, trying, somehow, to hold on to what was left. Her fingers gently traced the ink of her father's words. On the wall above her desk hung a photo from her 14th birthday, the last one they had celebrated together. In it, Ethan stood behind her, pride beaming from his face as she leaned forward to blow out the candles. His hands rested protectively on her shoulders. That version of her father now felt like a ghost, a stranger. Yet, sometimes she could still feel the phantom weight of his hands or hear the echo of his deep, comforting laugh. Her gaze shifted to the mirror. Her reflection stared back, older, sharper, quieter. People often told her she had her mother's eyes and her father's smile. It was a genetic inheritance that felt both sacred and sorrowful. She was becoming a young woman in a world where her parents now existed only in fragments, faded memories, old photos, and prison records. Their choices, so irreversible, had become threads woven deeply into her own unfolding story. At the end of the letter was something new. "I've started teaching other inmates to read in the prison library," her father had written. "Sometimes I pretend it's you sitting across from me, like when we used to read before bed. I know I've lost the right to ask for forgiveness, Lily, but I pray that one day, in some small way, you'll find peace. Peace with who I was, who I became, and most of all, with who you choose to be despite everything."